On today's show, Anthony Edwards dominates as the Minnesota Timberwolves take a 3-1 lead over the Lakers. The Detroit Pistons, they got robbed against the New York Knicks. And is this era of Bucks basketball over in Milwaukee? We'll talk about all that and every game from Sunday right here on Locked On NBA Game Night.
When that final buzzer rings, you know it's time for Locked On NBA Game Night. All the post-game reactions to every game across the league, every single night, with insights only the hosts at Locked On can provide. It's the true NBA fans' one stop for all the action. Every game, every night. It's Locked On NBA Game Night. Tipping off now.
What's up, everybody? My name is Danny Cunningham from Locked On Cavs. Joining me Sunday night, as always, Swipa from Locked On Nuggets. Man, missed doing this with you last week. It felt weird doing it on Saturday.
Yeah, we have a chemistry that we've been developing, and then you decided to go AWOL for a little bit, but we're back to it.
But thank you for making Locked On NBA Game Night your first listen today and every night. You can find the show anywhere you get your podcast, Apple, Spotify, anywhere else. On YouTube as well. Make sure you hit that thumbs up button for us as we get started here. Click subscribe and hit that notification bell. And today's episode brought to you by the Amazon Fire TV Stick 4K. Turn any TV into your Xbox. No console needed. Head to Amazon.com/Fire TV Locked On to learn more. We start in Minneapolis today, where the Minnesota Timberwolves take a 3-1 lead over the Los Angeles Lakers with a 116-113 win. Anthony Edwards has 43 points for the Wolves. He had a huge fourth quarter. He didn't outscore the Lakers in the fourth quarter, but he had 16. The Lakers had 19. He went off. That's the biggest reason to me, Swipe, why this is a 3-1 Minnesota lead.
Yeah, definitely give credit to Anthony Edwards. I think he's having the best year of his career. This, for me, is arguably his best playoff series because he has been asked to step forward as a playmaker in the series, given how he's been covered. And it's not just the assists. He's only averaging 5.8 assists. It's the decision-making. It's the fact that when the ball needs to be moved, he's moving it, but he's only averaging 1.5 turnovers a game, even though he's facing most of the defensive coverages from the Lakers. But the whole series, when he's been able to get Luka Doncic, Rui Hachimura, Austin Reeves at the top of the key, he's been isolating at the top, and he's been cutting, slashing, getting penetration, kicking out, or trying to finish around the rim. And one of the things he did today that he's done all year, he gets up 10 threes and makes 5 of them, the same thing that he did this last game. And Anthony Edwards, since he's taken this leap as a jump shooter, he has become a different kind of basketball player. And this series, y'all, if you did not know this, he's averaging 9.3 three-point attempts per game. He's hitting 43.2% of those three-point attempts. And today, those last few minutes that he played versus the LA Lakers today, he put them on the spot. So he deserves credit for the shot making, for the defense that he plays, especially when they were hounding Luka Doncic at the top of the key with him and Dante DiVincenzo. But also, Danny, one of the things that I noted last game, the Minnesota Timberwolves play 8 NBA players. They play 8 starting level NBA players. Their starting unit of Mike Conley, Anthony Edwards, Jaden McDaniels, Julius Randle, who's having a phenomenal series, and Rudy Gobert is already really good. But off the bench, they're bringing Naz Reid, they're bringing Dante DiVincenzo, and they're bringing Nickeil Alexander-Walker off the bench. And this is not including Terrence Shannon Jr. and Jalen Clark. They literally can go 8 to 10 deep. And Danny, they have 8 players that could be starting on NBA teams that are playing on this roster. And I actually think beyond even just the Anthony Edwards, it's the fact that Naz Reid comes off the bench in the fourth quarter, hitting huge, timely buckets. And then also the drop-off, even though it's a little bit defensively in terms of the scheme without Rudy Gobert on the court, they're still all working extremely hard to contain the ball as much as possible. And today, when they did not overhelp on Luka Doncic and they just said, go ahead, beat us as a scorer, we're not going to let you get wide open shooters in the corner or at the wing, they actually played very well today. So honestly, shout out to Chris Finch. Shout out to Tim Connolly for developing this roster. Shout out to Anthony Edwards for taking a step from last year to this year. Shout out Julius Randle, who before this year had never had a good playoff series, and dare I say, 2 good playoff games in one series. And he has been lights out this entire year and the lights out in this series as a switch defender, as a rebounder, and as a bucket getter. Man, the Minnesota Timberwolves up 3-1, and they put their foot on the neck of the Lakers today.
There's obviously a lot more to get to in that game, but before we dive into it, I want to head on out over to Locked On Wolves and Locked On Lakers for more.
The Minnesota Timberwolves pull out a big Game 4 win to take a 3-1 series lead back to LA for Game 5 on Wednesday. I'm Ben Beacon, host of the Daily Locked On Wolves podcast. Anthony Edwards drops 40-plus again. The Timberwolves get 25 out of Julius Randle, and Naz Reid and Ant stand out. I mean, the whole team played extremely well defensively down the stretch, but Naz's fourth quarter performance didn't miss a shot from the field, hit a couple of big threes. Anthony Edwards, awesome defensively as well. And on the final play of the game, Anthony Edwards, after hitting a couple of clutch free throws to put the Wolves up 3, the Wolves force the ball out of Luka's hands, force it out of LeBron's hands. Austin Reeves gets a decent look at a corner 3 that rims out. This was all about the Wolves' activity on the glass, their ability to get to the free throw line, and Anthony Edwards being superhuman. And don't forget about that Naz Reid performance down the stretch either. We're going to break down the whole game and look ahead to Game 5 on Locked On Wolves. Subscribe to Locked On Wolves for all things Timberwolves.
This is Andy Kamenetsky, co-host of the Locked On Lakers podcast, and the Lakers lose Game 4 against the Timberwolves, 116-113. They are now down 3-1 in this series. A lot of controversy swirling around, whether you're talking about some questionable calls and no calls hurting the Lakers, whether you're talking about J.J. Redick's decision to play the same 5 guys, LeBron James, Luka Doncic, Austin Reeves, Rui Hachimura, and Dorian Finney-Smith for the entire second half. But one big commonality that has been hurting the Lakers is the Timberwolves simply being better than them down the stretch of fourth quarters. Anthony Edwards has been magnificent. Julius Randle has been huge, and the Lakers just have not been getting enough help across their roster. They are now left trying to pull off the seemingly impossible. For more Lakers coverage, make sure you watch Locked On Lakers on YouTube and listen wherever you get your podcasts.
So one of the things that really stood out to me about not just this game, but this series so far is the way that the Wolves have closed games, right? Like today, they were facing a deficit in the fourth quarter. I do think part of it was the Lakers ran out of gas, as you heard from Andy. The same 5 guys played all 24 minutes of the second half, which has happened before. It's not something I can recall directly. Like I cannot think of a game where I've seen that before. But think back to, and we're going to talk about Milwaukee in a little bit, but think back to that game earlier. I think it was end of March, early April, but they had a 24-point lead over the Bucks, and they just forgot how to play basketball in the fourth quarter. And the Bucks came back and won that game. And that was one of the reasons why I think I and some other people, not that game specifically, but closing out games was a reason why I had some reservations about this Wolves team. And to see them just kind of flip what they did in the regular season in some closing minutes into being able to be dominant down the stretch, I think is a really big deal.
Yeah, I think one of the things that matters in this league more than anything else. So they scored 32 points in the fourth quarter. The Lakers only scored 19. But yeah, they got 16 points from Anthony Edwards, but they got 8 points off the bench from Naz Reid. They got 3 points off the bench from Dante DiVincenzo, and they got 5 points from Jaden McDaniels. Like, they had to find other ways to score. And if it was just Anthony Edwards and no one else, and they weren't able to rely on any other players, then they might have lost this game. But the thing is, they went 7 deep in the second half, which isn't crazy because Nickeil Alexander-Walker wasn't in the rotation. But I think for me, that's what the league is. And I said this a couple of days ago, actually after the Nuggets lost game 3. I think having the best player in a series matters less than it maybe has ever meant in the NBA. Now, Ant, you can make an argument, has been the best player in the series. But I think one of the things you have to come to terms with, if you don't have a roster, Danny, from 1 to 8 at least, maybe even at the very worst 1 to 7. And I'm talking about 7 starters. I don't know if you can survive because of how good the players are now. You have to get them rest, and you got to be able to get plays from other players that are not normally going to be the ones that are finishing possessions. And they have those guys. And I think that is going to be their recipe. So if they do end up beating the Lakers and they got to face the Warriors or they got to face the Houston Rockets, I would say the Rockets have even more depth than the Warriors. But look, the Warriors also have some guys that they can bring off their bench that are productive as well. That's just the league we're in. And I think that, as we're going to talk about the Bucks a little bit later, as good as your top-end talent might be, boy, if you can't get to that bench and they can't do something special on a night-to-night basis, you might be out of there. And because of that, the Lakers, who are getting NBA Finals hype going into the playoffs, might be out in 5 games of the first round of the playoffs to the Wolves.
And I think that's a really good point about having depth and that mattering. And the way that I've kind of always looked at it is, how many guys do you have on your roster that just aren't like good NBA quality basketball players? I'm not even talking starters the way that you are with the Wolves, and you're not wrong about that at all. Like, they've got a lot of guys that maybe could play more minutes elsewhere in certain situations, but they don't get that necessarily that amount of burn in Minnesota just because that roster is so good above them. But I look at it as, how many guys do you have to play that are not good NBA players? And maybe this isn't always the same in the playoffs because the rotations tend to shrink. Like, I don't know that you can survive a full NBA season only playing 7 or 8 guys every night. Like, I think there's a reason why you don't see teams like that often win titles. But when you get to the postseason, it becomes a little bit less about who's the best and a little bit more about, well, how can we solve this problem? Or how can this guy survive in this matchup? And the Wolves, I don't know if they're entirely matchup proof, but I think they have a lot more answers to those questions than the Lakers do.
Yeah, and I think that's what it is. Like, do you have more options than your opponent? The Thunder have the most options, I would say, in the Western Conference, which is why they should be the favorite. I think the Celtics have the most options with Cleveland, maybe the Celtics even more, in everybody in Eastern Conference. I think that's why them and Cleveland have been at the top of the board the entire year. And also, as somebody who projected the Indiana Pacers from the start of the year to now, that look, they're a team to worry about. We'll talk about in a minute. They got a bunch of options and a bunch of NBA players, which is why, who could have figured, they are walking by the Milwaukee Bucks.
We will get to that coming up in a little bit, but up next, with the Detroit Pistons, Rob, we got to dive into the end of that game and the New York Knicks taking a 3-1 series lead. That's straight ahead right here on Locked On NBA Game Night. Today's show brought to you by Prize Picks. Basketball and hockey playoffs are here, and there's no better time to turn your sports knowledge into real cash with Prize Picks, the top destination for daily fantasy action. Prize Picks makes it simple. Just pick more or less on at least 2 player projections, and you're in. You can even mix and match players across basketball, hockey, baseball. That's going on right now, too, and more for a shot to win up to 2,000 times your cash. Maybe in hoops, you want to take Nikola Jokic for more than 25 points and Jaylen Brown for more than 4 assists. Maybe those guys get to those spots. I don't know. I can't tell the future. But with Prize Picks, every lineup you make on Prize Picks will enter you in the Takes 2 ticket sweepstakes, which could get you and a +1 a VIP trip to the ship. So download the Prize Picks app today and use code LOCKEDONNBA, that is LOCKEDON-NBA, to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup with Prize Picks. That's code LOCKEDONNBA to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks, run your game. Thank you again for making Locked On NBA Game Night your first listen today and every day. Like I said earlier, you can find the show anywhere you get your podcasts, Apple, Spotify, anywhere else. And the New York Knicks get a 94-93 win in Game 4 over the Detroit Pistons in Detroit. They take a 3-1 series lead. This game, of course, not without controversy. Before we dive into it, let's head on over to Locked On Knicks for more.
Overcome a 10-point fourth quarter deficit and a controversial non-call in the final seconds to beat the Detroit Pistons. I'm Gavin Shaw of the Locked On Knicks podcast. The Knicks take a 3-1 lead back to MSG with an opportunity to close out the series on Tuesday. First of all, thanks to some incredible shot making from Jalen Brunson and Karl-Anthony Towns. But man, this was an absolute roller coaster of a basketball game. The Knicks were in complete control in the first half. Even though they weren't shooting particularly well, Detroit was shooting even worse. Detroit was turning the ball over relentlessly. Probably the best defensive game Mikal Bridges has had as a Knick. He did an exceptional job on Cunningham, but really it was true across the board that the Knicks were defending well. And then Detroit went on an extended 23-4 run from the end of the second quarter through the beginning of the third, and it felt like the Knicks were never going to score another basket. You get to the point where Jalen Brunson turns his ankle. You thought the game was over, like he has so many times, goes to the locker room, comes back, 15 points in the fourth quarter. Karl-Anthony Towns, a baseline fadeaway to beat a shot clock buzzer in the final 90 seconds, and then a 28-foot three-pointer to beat the shot clock buzzer in the final minute or so of this game. No call, where Josh Hart did foul Tim Hardaway, according to officials at the end. The way this series has been officiated, I don't know if it's the most egregious thing we've seen. Detroit fans would certainly disagree. Either way, Knicks have a series lead.
Well, he mentioned it, so that's where we're going to start. But the non-call at the end of regulation where Josh Hart he bid on a pump fake from Tim Hardaway Jr., got up in the air. Hardaway went into Josh Hart's chest, shooting a three from the left corner. No whistle after the game. The officiating crew said, hey, we missed that one. It doesn't matter that they missed that one because you can't go back and replay it. And ultimately, that is a really, really tough break for Detroit.
So, yeah, David Guthrie was the official, and I'm reading from Ian Begley, the pool report. The question was, what did you see on that last series, and why wasn't there a foul called on Tim Hardaway Jr.'s three-point attempt? David Guthrie responded, during live play, it was judged that Josh Hart made a legal defensive play. After post-game review, we observed that Hart makes body contact, that it's more than marginal to Hardaway Jr., and a foul should have been called. And Danny, if there was ever going to be one of the first protests that we've seen, and especially in a playoff setting in the modern era, this needs to be it. It was that egregious. And I think that one of the responses from Knicks fans had been, well, what about the missed call here, here, and here? And I'm here to tell you that, yes, the game has been sloppy. I would say the Detroit Knicks game, there's a lot of contact being allowed, a lot of missed foul calls. But in two instances now, 2 games ago, when Asar Thompson got thrown out of that game because Jalen Brunson was baiting, and even though it looked like Asar went straight up and down, he jumped into Asar, got him out. We've seen this time and time again. There were calls that Jalen Brunson hasn't gotten. There are calls that Karl-Anthony Towns hasn't gotten. I'm agreeing with you. Knicks fans have a right to be pressed about some of that stuff. But Danny, an NBA playoff game with the last shot of the game was decided by a missed call that the NBA itself is admitting to have missed. And that possession would have put Tim Hardaway Jr., an 85.5% free throw shooter, to the line with 3 attempts to tie, and then it would have had 2 attempts to get the lead after he made his first one. So, Danny, I don't know. This should be a 2-2 series at this point. And this isn't speculation. This is what happened in the game. If you're going to give grifting fouls to guards throughout this playoff or to Jalen Brunson, how could you, in that instance, see this happen and not call it when it directly affected the quality of the shot that Tim Hardaway Jr. had? That's what I'm frustrated about. And that's why I'm saying, why would the NBA, if anything, you should call a foul and then review it, as opposed to not calling a foul, and it's just, now it is what it is. All of America knows that, honestly, Detroit Pistons, they should have won that basketball game. Instead of being 2-2, now it's 3-1.
If you're a Pistons fan, you should be sick. Like, you should be sick over this, not only because of the way that this game ended, but think about how this series has gone, right? Like, game 1, the Pistons were in control of that game going into the fourth quarter. Even into the fourth quarter, they were in control of that game. And they just had I think the best way to term it is a young team meltdown at MSG. And the Knicks go on, a 21-0 run. They take command. They win that game. Like, you could walk out of that game saying, we should be up 1-0. And then you win game 2 in New York, which I thought was a really, really impressive win. The fact that they bounced back from what happened in game 1, I was super impressed with. And then game 3 happens, which had a weird ending of its own.
Yeah.
But you lose at home. And then to lose this game in this fashion, when not only were you negatively impacted by a very clear and obvious missed call by an official, but also had a fourth quarter lead again. It wasn't as bad as what happened in game 1 in terms of not being able to hang on to the lead. But it was kind of the same story where the Pistons just couldn't get over the hump. They couldn't get it done. And for me, looking through this game was lost in that moment at the end. And it's easy to say, well, what about all the other stuff? And we do have to talk about the other stuff, because it's not as if they just dropped into the final seconds of the game and that's all that matters.
Yeah.
But the thing I look at is the shooting. Tim Hardaway Jr. was 4 of 13 from 3. Malik Beasley was 3 of 9 for 3. No other Pistons made a 3-pointer. Everyone else went over. Cade Cunningham, 0 of 3. Tobias Harris, 0 of 3. Asar Thompson, 0 of 1. Like, they just could not find production. You are not going to win very many playoff games shooting 24% from beyond the arc. That's just not going to happen against good teams.
Well, and also I want to give credit here. Jalen Brunson, y'all, the winner of the NBA's Clutch Player of the Year award, 15 points in the fourth quarter, 7 of 11 from the field, 1 of 1 from 3 with 2 assists. And he was a plus 11. Him and Josh Hart are both a plus 11. Josh Hart did not register anything beyond 1 point and 2 rebounds and 2 assists, and he was a plus 11. So they helped. Yeah, he said what?
And a missed foul call.
Yeah, and a missed foul call. Yeah, 100%. Like, and then Kay Cunningham, Tim Hardaway Jr., Malik Beasley, they tried to will their team back into the game, and they fought really hard. But again, like I said, Danny, it just sucks that, like, this is going to be a moment that Detroit Pistons fans remember forever. Like, they're going to remember that if we lose this series because we were down 3-1 instead of it being 2-2, this is why. It's because when there was an opportunity for us to justly go to the free throw line to win the game, we were robbed of that. And I think that's something that's going to stick in their craw for a while now.
And I don't know that the Pistons would have won this series. I think New York would have found a way. Like, I just think they're a more talented, more experienced team. But there's not a way to replace a game 6, maybe fighting for your season where you've battled and it's 2-2 and you go to New York for a game 5. Like, those are moments that I think are really important in terms of a team maturing. And now it feels like Detroit is missing out on that, and it's not their fault.
Look, Danny, but even if you go back to the play, JB Bickerstaff, who's going to win Coach of the Year, I think, is walking to the other side of the court, following the referees, telling them that's a foul. And the referees just have to run into the tunnel. Like, again, it's just like the whole thing, Danny. I just think is like, I just don't know how in the NBA, a $1 billion industry, we're still missing calls like that, like in the NBA in the playoffs. It just doesn't make sense to me.
It does not make sense to me either. It was egregious. I cannot believe that call was not called. It cost the Pistons the game, and I certainly feel bad for that fan base and that team. Another fan base where I'm starting to feel bad, the Milwaukee Bucks, because that era of basketball might be over in the state of Wisconsin. And hey, give credit to the Pacers. They're really good too. We're going to talk about that next right here on Locked On NBA Game Night. Today's show brought to you by FanDuel. The NBA playoffs, they're here. And FanDuel's giving new customers an incredible way to get in on the action, because right now when you join FanDuel and place your first $5 bet, you'll get $250 in bonus bets if that first $5 bet wins. FanDuel makes betting so easy, whether you're picking your favorite team or diving into player props like three-pointers, steals, assists, rebounds, whatever it is. FanDuel has so many ways to bet your favorite player props. Plus, after the game tips off, you can even combine live prop bets into a same game parlay for a chance to win big. There are a lot of series right now that 3-1, it's been done before. It's rare. I believe there's only 13 3-1 comebacks in NBA playoff history. Maybe we see one. Maybe you see some value. Hey, maybe you believe in Detroit. Think they got robbed. They're going to use that as motivation. They're going to come back and win this series in 7 games. Get pretty good value there with FanDuel. Maybe that's your first $5 bet. But again, new FanDuel customers, place your first $5 bet and you get $250 in bonus bets if that first $5 bet wins. Don't miss out. Head to FanDuel.com today. That is FanDuel.com and claim your $250 in bonus bets today. Again, FanDuel.com, or download the FanDuel Sportsbook app. FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Thank you again for making Locked On NBA Game Night your first listen today and every day. If you're watching on YouTube, do us a favor. Hit that thumbs up button for us, click subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you don't miss the latest from us here. The Indiana Pacers, they take a 3-1 lead over the Milwaukee Bucks with a 129-103 win in Milwaukee in Game 4. The story of this one, listen, the Pacers played awesome. They were really, really good. I thought they got whatever shot they wanted against Milwaukee's defense. I don't think Milwaukee has defensive answers against what the Pacers can do offensively. But the story of this game, Damian Lillard goes down. It's been reported, and it is 1 a.m. Eastern time as we record this right now. So if new stuff comes out after this, we don't have that information. But as of now, it's been reported by Chris Haynes that it is a potentially serious Achilles injury. I would be stunned if he plays in Game 5. It sounds like he has a torn Achilles. So this is something that we might be watching the final remnants of this era of Bucks basketball.
Yeah, and like first off, I want to say that our prayers are with Damian Lillard. This is a serious injury potentially, and if it is, that happened in the first quarter, it changed the direction of the game. Dame is a pillar of the NBA community. He's a well-loved and celebrated player in the NBA community, and so none of us want to see that happen, especially for someone who came back from early signs of a blood clot.
100%.
And it's just like it's not something you want to see on a human level. And I think Portland Trailblazers fan, Bucks fans especially, don't want to see this happen to Dame. So obviously we're hoping for a speedy recovery for him. But you know what? It just feels, Danny, like this is probably going to be the end of the road, I think, for the Bucks. Because if this is what it is, Dame potentially is going to miss all of next season. They don't have assets to develop into the future. They don't control any of their first round picks, I believe. Let me make sure I got that correct. Until 2031. So
it's a long time from now, man.
Right. So you have the 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30 drafts. So 6 more years of having picks that are being controlled by other teams. And then on top of that, Giannis is already 30. I just think that this era is probably more than likely over. I think they can take solace in the fact they did get a title in 2021 and that Giannis was a 2-time MVP and a Defensive Player of the Year with that organization. But I just don't think that this just can't be a situation, I think, for Giannis that he wants to spend the rest of his prime at, given how well he's played. And he's averaging 33 and 14 and 5 in the playoffs right now, and it doesn't mean anything. Like, they're losing all of these games. They arguably could have got swept. But now they're probably going to lose in 5, and Giannis is going to have great numbers again. And this is going to be, Giannis has had 1 playoff win in the last 8 playoff games or 9 playoff games now. And if he loses the next game, that'll be 1 playoff win in the last 10. Like, that's just not acceptable for the dominant athlete who is in best player in the world conversation. And for a top 20 all-time player at the apex of their powers, I just think that is totally egregious. He's been mismanaged. The franchise has been mismanaged, Danny, and they just look worldly outclassed by the Pacers. And I told folks, Danny, we probably talked about this on this channel. Aaron Nesmith, Pascal Siakam, Miles Turner, Andrew Nembhard, Jarris Walker, Tyrese Halliburton, Obi Toppin, TJ McDonald, Ben Shepherd, and Benny. That's a loaded Pacers team. They're loaded, and they're everything that's wrong with the Bucks. The Bucks have no chance of guarding them. And I think people heard Giannis and Dame, and they figured well, no, Swipa, that's just not the, we won the season series and this. And I'm like, it don't matter. Once you get to the playoffs, and now we're scheming for you, bro, they have no answers to cover them, Danny, and they're getting blitzed. Every single game, they're getting blitzed by that team.
So this relates to the conversation we had earlier about the Wolves. But look up and down that Bucks roster. Look at their rotation. You just named off a bunch of guys on the Pacers that are all really, really good players, right?
Yep.
Like Nesmith is awesome. Obviously, Pascal Siakam, Miles Turner, Tyrese Halliburton, we don't have to talk about how good those guys are. Everybody knows. Nembhard is awesome. TJ McConnell does really good things. How many guys, other than Giannis, and Dame is not part of this conversation now because he's out, other than Giannis, how many guys on the Bucks would be in Indy's rotation?
Well, Kyle, so let's just go through it. You tell me yes or no. Kyle Kuzma.
No.
Brook Lopez.
No.
Gary Trent Jr.
Maybe.
Kevin Porter Jr.
No.
Bobby Portis.
Maybe.
AJ Green.
Maybe.
Jericho Sims.
Absolutely not.
Torian Prince.
No.
Pat Connaughton.
No.
Okay, then Andre Jackson.
No. Chris Livingston. No. Ryan Rollins. No. Do you disagree with any of those answers?
I mean, some of them you can debate, but even Brook, Brook for the Pacers, you could argue he'd be a good backup big to Miles Turner, especially the rim protection and all that kind of stuff. He can space the floor out. But yeah, I mean, everybody else
can't get up and down the floor the way the Pacers want. He can't play in the series because the Pacers want to go, and Brook is one of the slowest guys in the NBA.
Right. So at this point, I'm not why do I need Kyle Kuzma if I'm loaded with wings that are all better defensively, and many of them are also better play finishers as well as shots, 3-point shooters, or even around the rim. Like, this is what I'm telling you. What were the Bucks thinking in their roster development? They have Giannis. So what does Giannis need? I'll tell you what, Danny. He needs POA defenders that can guard, hold their line at the point of attack. He's an elite weak side rim protector. Can you give me an actual big that can do some of the stuff I can't do? I need shooting around me, and I need a point guard. If you gave me a point guard, a POA defender, and shooters, we could go to work. They basically just went the complete opposite direction of that, and they have a lack of athletes. The roster feels old, and they're taking risk on places that I don't think they can take risk on. And the fact that they blew their team up to add Dame and didn't even fortify Dame with another truly good POA defender to take some of the responsibility off his plate defensively, Danny, the whole thing has been mismanaged ever since the title. And
how many good moves have they made since the title? How many good basketball moves other than extending Giannis? Because obviously, like, no brainer, you do that. But how many good transactions have they had since winning the title?
Do you consider Dame a good move?
I don't. And it's not because Dame's not an awesome player, like he is.
Yeah.
But trading Drew, you went from having a team that was with a defensive identity because of what Drew brings to the floor to a team that had to shift to an offensive identity, and that didn't work. And also, if you were going to trade Drew, what you needed to do was get younger. And they didn't. Drew and Dame are the same age. They didn't get younger in that spot. So you needed to find somebody that was not going to be Giannis's peer. Like, you were never going to find somebody that was as good as him, but you needed to find somebody that was borderline all-star level, but like 3 years younger than Giannis. Instead, they found somebody 4 years older than Giannis, and it I think expedited their window being closed.
Yeah, I mean, it's unfortunate, but like I said, the Bucks deserve all of the criticism for what's happened. But it's really unfortunate. I feel for Bucks fans. I feel for the Bucks players. They're obviously trying their hardest, but they just don't have. They're just not good enough, and that's just the end of the year. That's the end of the road. And then we'll see what happens with what they do this summer, and then obviously coming up in Game 5.
Yes, we will. And then the last game of the day, the Boston Celtics beat the Orlando Magic in their Game 4 to take a 3-1 series lead. Boston wins this one 107-98. Let's head on out to Locked On Celtics for more.
Celtics get a tough win here in Orlando to go up 3-1. Jayson Tatum, huge down the stretch. The Celtics, after the game was tied at 91 with about 4:15 to go, the Celtics closed on a big run, defending without fouling for once, limiting the Magic to one shot for once, and getting superstar performance from Jayson Tatum, who started doing whatever he wanted, hitting shots, hitting a huge turnaround shot on the post, drawing three free throws on a foul at the three-point line, and just closing this game out. It's been a very tough series that hopefully the Celtics will close out in Game 4 in Boston, but that won't be easy either, because Orlando's big, tough, physical, and they challenge everything the Celtics have been trying to do. At every turn, the Celtics tried to pull away. The Magic were there, whether it's a physical play or a tough drive. They have been just incredible and incredibly tough. But the Celtics behind, and I got to mention the defense from Al Horford. 5 block shots in this. He was so massive down the stretch. Celtics doing what they need to do in a game where I wasn't sure they were going to win in the last few minutes, but pulling it out and sending it home for a potential closeout game on Tuesday night.
I have to say, we all expected Boston to win this series. Like, nobody picked Orlando to win this series. I have come away from this really impressed with Orlando showing what they've shown, right? Like, they were never going to win this series, but they've never once backed down. Like, even in this game on Sunday, it felt like they could have let go of the rope 4 or 5 times, and they would come back and get it to within 2, or they tied the game in the fourth quarter. I've been super impressed with them.
Yeah, and this is arguably Paolo Banchero's worst game of this series. And he shot the ball 32 times, made 12, but he had 31 again, 7 and 3. I think they really have found something. I think he's found something within himself. I think there's a level he's shown he can get to in the playoffs that I think matters for next season for them, where he can take a true leap as a player overall, maybe an all-NBA leap for Paolo Banchero. Just a great Great story for him this year, overcoming those injuries. Franz Wagner also had 24 points today. They battle. They just lack what we all know they lack: point guard, playmaking, shot creation, and then shot finishing at the three-point line. They're lacking a good few of things. Like, obviously that's important, but I think they're on the right path. But the Celtics are just a finished product. You know, they have a chance to win the title again this year. JT, and especially y'all, when you get into with the Celtics in this setting in the fourth quarter, Jayson Tatum with 16 points in the fourth quarter, y'all. He gets 9 free throws. Like, he just knew, like, I got to get to the line. I got to create contact. I got to set the tone. And he did it versus the Magic. And so there you go. The Celtics get another win, or even closer to getting back to the NBA Finals.
That they are. They will have to try and take care of business in game 5. We got a couple of game 4s, the last 2 game 4s coming your way on Monday night. So keep it locked right here with Locked On NBA for everything you need from those games. He's Swipa. You can check him out more at Locked On Nuggets. I'm Danny Cunningham at Locked On Cavs, and we will talk to you next weekend.